Donnacha, this escalation, the Ukrainian military base, like 25 kilometres, just from the Polish border, is it an escalation? Like, is it a case that Putin has the West in his sights, or is it a warning to foreign fighters?
It's a combination of those things. I mean, he's testing the West. He's been doing this for months now, advancing his objectives and seeing what the result will be, and taking, a signal then from the West about what the repercussions would be. I mean, one of his problems has been, of course, that he underestimated the Western response in terms of sanctions and the unity of the West, because all the build-up to it suggested the West was rather weak and disunited on the issue of Ukraine. But this is definitely an escalation. And the problem with Putin is that he doesn't have international borders which he respects. He has kind of blurred margins. His optimal kind of period of history is the Russian Empire, which of course included places like Poland. So the Poles are very worried. There was an interview with the president of Poland yesterday, Alexander Duda, and he said that, if they used chemical and biological weapons, for example, in Ukraine, that would be a game changer, was the term he used, and would lead to a further escalation within Europe, and he said perhaps the world. So there's a lot of tension right now among Ukraine's neighbours, because they do fear that it could be them next, not least because they have been there before. They're all former members of the Russian Empire.
So you think that he doesn't see borders? So you think that he could potentially attack a bit closer to Poland again? I mean, we're talking 25 kilometres here. So, I mean, once he steps over that line, though, does that turn into potential World War III? I mean, does that look like NATO have to retaliate?
Well, NATO have said they would retaliate if he does move in. That's the difficulty for Ukraine. Ukraine, of course, is not a member of an international club like NATO, and that's why it's being attacked. But the worry
Poland is. I mean, it's a very fine margin.
But the worry is that, the argument about why not intervene on Ukraine's behalf. Ukraine is 44 million people. Why not help Ukraine? Because he's got a nuclear weapon. But he'll always have a nuclear weapon. And that argument will always stay there. So, that's why people in Poland are worried, or Latvia are worried that, like, will they actually come to their assistance, and how will they come to the assistance? These are smaller countries than Ukraine. So if Ukraine is not being helped, will they be helped? Because, it's revealed a lot of weakness in the Western response, because, there's been aerial bombardments of cities. This is a sovereign democratic country which has been invaded, and yet the West has been unable to render assistance that has turned the tide of this war, even though, of course, the Ukrainians have put up a heroic resistance in slowing down the Russian momentum.
Yeah, go on, sorry,
I was just going to ask you just on that, just to go back, Donnacha, on the point about the chemical weapons. Like, is there a likelihood that will happen, that he will use them, or is it a case that he's using that as a sort of a ploy or a threat to try and entice other Western leaders into the negotiating table? Like we've heard over the weekend that there is the real possibility of, some discussion actually happening between both sides within the next couple of days. Is that a realistic possibility?
One can only hope, because, there has to be an exit strategy. The problem is that everything emanating from the Kremlin is that they are looking for only surrender terms. They're not looking for real negotiations. Sergei Lavrov, for example, the Russian foreign minister, said only on Thursday, after meeting the Ukrainian foreign minister, that Ukraine had not been attacked by Russia. So if they haven't been attacked by Russia, then what's there to resolve? I mean, they're living in a parallel universe. It's almost Orwellian in terms of the way that they're divorced from reality, and explaining to their own people that this is a liberation of Ukraine from its own government, when, as we see, the people are rallying around their president in an unprecedented way. But the worrying thing now is that Vladimir Putin is going to assume that with all these refugees leaving for Europe, that the people left behind now are kind of legitimate targets, so to speak. The women and children and the elderly have been moved out, and that anyone left behind is a fighter, and that he's going to descend to ever greater depths of brutality to get a military victory, because he needs a military victory. This is a dictatorship. If he loses this war, his regime is gone.
Adrian, we'll come to you about the other stories with the refugees in a second, but I just want to ask Donnacha one quick thing. It just happened overnight that American sources were saying that Russia have reached out to China to look to see if they can get aid, get help, more military help as well. Do you think that could happen?
Oh, I've heard that, because it would be... It could be easily consistent with the facts, because Russia's war is not going well. I mean, this was supposed to be a blitzkrieg, a shock and awe, a victory within a couple of days, and now they're almost into 3 weeks. They're overstretched. You have to remember, again, compare it with Afghanistan. When the Kremlin sent troops to Afghanistan during the Cold War, they lost 14,000 troops in 10 years. Now, after almost 3 weeks, they've lost something in the region of 10,000, 12,000 troops, according to the Ukrainians. So, this is overstretching the Kremlin's resources. So I'm not surprised to hear rumours that they're already reaching out for aid from China.